So we all like to add more power to our classics and muscle cars, but a byproduct of that means getting that power to the pavement, which can be tricky when you start to lose traction. And how do you improve traction? Well, you put bigger rubber on the car. But what if you're out of room back there and you can't fit a bigger wheel and tire? Well, the answer is to install a mini tub. So today we're talking about mini tubs, which it's an interesting name for a thing because the word mini means small, but we're actually making our wheel tubs bigger, right? So where did the term mini tub come from? Well, originally a wheel tub was installed in the back of race cars to accommodate a very large slick. And these things were rolled and bead rolled and fabricated to be just a big round tub looking wheelhouse. And a lot of people didn't necessarily need a giant wheel tub because the car was being driven on the street and they just wanted to upsize their wheel and tire a little bit and not necessarily trying to fit a giant racing slick in there. So they came up with the term mini tub. And traditionally you could do a mini tub by taking your original wheelhouse that's already installed in the car from the factory and splitting it down the middle, widening it, and adding some material to close the gap. And then you get something that it can look like it's factory installed, but it's now wider to accommodate the bigger wheel and tire. Today, we're lucky that we can purchase pre-made mini tubs for a variety of different cars. And we're gonna be talking about a 68 Camaro that we're installing some on right now. Installing a mini tub is kind of half the battle because some of these cars also have a frame rail that gets in the way or a spring that gets in the way. So those need to be addressed as well. But let's just chat a little bit about how the mini tub gets installed. These can be challenging, especially on a car that has a nice paint job on the outside. If you're starting from scratch and redoing the whole car and it's all stripped down, well, then it really doesn't matter if you weld or grind or get sparks on the outside of the car. But we've done a lot of these here at V8 Speed and Resto where the car has either a show quality paint job or nice enough paint to where the owner didn't want to change it. So we always protect the outside of the car with mask tape and spark protection paper so that as we're cutting and grinding and welding, we don't mess all that up. Now when you do a mini tub install, you're essentially changing the interior tub. Most wheel tubs are two-piece. There's an outer wheelhouse and an inner wheelhouse. The inners are the ones closer to the trunk. So these are the ones that we're going to be pushing inward or changing with a larger wheel tub, which means there has to be some disassembly of the car. You got to take the back seat out, anything that's in the trunk has to come out, and it's also a good time to examine the weather strip around the trunk, take the trunk lid off, any carpet that's inside the cabin. So the more you can take out of the cabin and the trunk, the better, because you're minimizing the risk of starting a fire, and you do need access to the floor of the back part of the car to be able to put these in. The nice thing about this project is the way the wheel tub welds into the car from the factory is through a series of spot welds along the inside, and then it's pinch welded to the outer wheelhouse. And then on a Camaro, for example, there's a trunk lid support brace that is spot welded to the original tub. And you can separate all these welds simply by grinding or drilling out the spot welds. So it takes a little time, but if you identify where all those welds are and grind them or drill them out, the original wheel tub can generally be removed pretty easily. Once that wheel tub is out, take a look around and see if anything else is rusted or anything else needs attention, because now's your time to do it. But the install process involves modifying the trunk floor to be able to accommodate that wider tub. So in the case of a Camaro, we have to do a couple things. We cut or fold down the original trunk floor to get us more access and make that hole bigger for the wider tub. Most of these tubs are about 2 inches wider than the factory one, so that gives you an idea. In the case of a Detroit Speed kit, they come with a template and some laser cut steel closeout pieces to allow you to modify those rear frame rails. And what you're going to do is cut the rail and narrow it quite a bit to get your extra room, but at the same time, weld in that new piece so that you have strength in the frame rail. So when it's done, you've got a rail that's much narrower, but just as strong as the original. Once your frame rails are pinched, you can start to fit that new rear wheel tub in place. You might want to clean it and spray some epoxy or paint on it at this point before you weld it in, because it's a little tricky to get coverage inside there. And then they are welded together either through a plug weld technique or through a pinch welder or a resistant spot welder. You want to make sure you either screw them in place or clamp them so that they don't move on you as you weld them up. And then it's just a matter of taking your time and making sure all the welds are solid. And when it's finished, you'll go back through there and add some seam sealer between the mini tub and the trunk floor and across the top and anywhere that you took panels apart. That seam sealer will keep things from rusting in the future. One more thing to keep in mind if you do a mini tub job is that your rear seat area becomes smaller. It's more narrow now because of the tubs. So you have to modify the rear seat to make it fit. Typically remove the upholstery from the seat back and the seat bottom, cut and weld the seat frames up to make them narrower, and then reupholster. The end result is the ability to put a wheel and tire that are much wider than the original for better traction. Most of these wheel tubs accommodate a 300 or plus size, a 315, 345 in some cases on 69 Camaros, a far bigger tire than original. In the case of our 68, we also installed a Detroit Speed Quadrolink rear suspension system, which eliminated the original leaf springs. This isn't mandatory when doing a mini tub, but it's a big help because it moves the suspension components inboard. If you're going to use the stock leaf springs, Detroit Speed, for example, sells a relocation bracket which pushes those leaf springs inward to allow for the bigger tire. The other challenge can be the exhaust. When you start to move inboard, you start to take away the room where you used to be able to run your exhaust pipe. So you can get a notched fuel tank that allows for the tubes to go up over the axle and out the back without bumping into the fuel tank. These are all considerations as you're planning your rear suspension, because one thing does kind of lead into the next. So if you're thinking about having a mini tub kit installed in your car, you can reach us at v8speedshop.com. We do a lot of these installs, and even if a kit isn't available for your car, we have the ability to take your original tubs, cut them, widen them, put a strip back in there, and make it look like it never happened. And that will get you the traction you want, so you can add even more power to the front of the car. Thanks for checking us out. We'll see you next time.